The Biden administration's Bureau of Land Management yesterday published an environmental assessment. You better sit down for this one because I just about had to. This assessment by the Biden administration recommends partial approval of a major oil drilling project on Alaska's North Slope. What? What? It's called the Willow Project. And when that was announced, Jesus, there was a flurry of calls to the Interior Department begging them to reject the plan outright and prevent any further fossil fuel extraction in the region, oil or natural gas, whatever these son of a bitches are after. Reina Garcia, the fossil fuels and lands campaigner for Friends of the Earth, she said in a statement, quote, greenlighting the Willow Project would banish President Biden's climate legacy to one of irreparable and downright shameful environmental destruction. Big Oil's exploitation of the rapidly warming Arctic has already thrust local communities onto the front lines of the climate crisis, jeopardizing public health and polluting critical ecosystems, end quote. I thought, no, that can't, yes, that's what it is, Malloy. And then the executive director of Alaska Wilderness League, excuse me, her name is Kristen Miller. And she begged Biden to, quote, reverse course on this massive climate disaster, end quote. And she added this, Kristen Miller did, quote, our window to act is rapidly closing to avert catastrophic climate change. And this plan only takes us one giant step closer to the edge, end quote. What the, I mean, is this, how different is this from gun manufacturers authorizing the production of toy AR-15s? I mean, both are talking about weapons of mass destruction. The BLM's, Bureau of Land Management's newly released Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement says that what they call a preferred alternative to the originally planned Willow Project. And by the way, that comes from the oil company ConocoPhillips. The original plan that has been the subject of years of court battles between environmentalists and the federal government under both the Trump and the Biden administrations. And what they're saying, the Bureau of Land Management says this new plan to go ahead and partially approve a major drilling project is the preferred alternative to the original plan. No. Hell no. The preferred alternative is don't do it. But then, I'm not ConocoPhillips and I'm not the Biden administration and, So, the Environmental Impact Statement recommends the approval of 3 drilling locations instead of the original 5. And this new assessment proposes limiting pipeline mileage. And executives at this destructive, filthy company, ConocoPhillips, have said that any fewer than 3 drilling sites would make the project unviable because it would prevent Willow from turning a profit for the company. Well, no shit. Oh, but I'm sorry. I keep forgetting where I live and who runs where I live. If something can't make a profit in this country, Well, it's not even worth attempting, is it? I mean, leaving Alaska's North Slope in its wild state, what's left of it, well, that's no good. There's no profit there. So the Biden administration's assessment acknowledges that, quote, any North Slope oil and gas development, including the Willow plan, would likely incur spills, even if significant preventative measures are taken. Spills, oil, gunk. And the Inupiat sovereign nation there, it called it Sovereign Inupiat for a Living Arctic. They warned in a statement that, quote, if approved, this project would be the largest on public lands and would set back our national climate goals tremendously. This group, Sovereign Inupiat for a Living Arctic, it's a grassroots group, you can tell by the name. It went on to say this, quote, Willow would lock us into extraction, oil drilling, for another 30 years and could potentially be the catalyst for future oil expansion in the Arctic. In 2021, a federal judge rejected the Interior Department's 2020 approvals of Willow for lack of adequate consideration of the impact on the surrounding environment. Regardless of the precautions put in place, there is no denying that fossil fuels are single-handedly the most damaging contributor to the global climate emergency, especially here in the Arctic. End quote. And then the group added this, quote, the Interior Department must reject the Willow proposal and live up to this administration's promises to take meaningful climate action and protect biodiversity by leveraging natural climate solutions. The only reasonable solution to the climate emergency is to deny new fossil fuel projects like Willow and invest in a just transition. Now, what do you suppose the Biden administration's Bureau of Land Management, a division of the Interior Department, what do you suppose they're going to do? We will be able to get a very clear understanding of Joe Biden if, I know there's a lot of people who already have that. I'll say, Malloy, you're being very naive if you think Biden is really the progressive you might think he is. Look, I've never said Biden is a progressive. Some of the policies he has pushed, because he's being pushed by progressives, have been progressive. This is not one of them. I understand that. But if Biden allows this to go through, and there's a couple of other issues, and he runs for re-election in 2024, do you think he would get my vote? Oh, my God. Don't tell me we're going to have another lesser of two evils situation. Anyway, the Interior Department, that's headed by a woman named Deb Haaland. She criticized the Willow Project when she was a member of Congress. Now she's the head of the Interior Department. She now has a month to make a final decision on this project. It's going to come from her, based on whatever scientific or environmental input or input from these filthy oil companies that she may consider, all the input. In a statement, the Interior Department made it clear that it could further stop this project. They could block it entirely. And in doing that, climate groups said this would be consistent with the Biden administration's climate pledges. The Interior Department said this. Here's a statement. The department has substantial concerns about the Willow Project and the preferred alternative as presented in the final assessment, including direct and indirect greenhouse gas emissions and impacts to wildlife and Alaska Native subsistence. Consistent with the law, a decision will be finalized by the department no sooner than 30 days after publication of the final assessment. That decision may select a different alternative, including no action or the deferral of additional drill pads beyond the single deferral described under the preferred alternative, end quote. Now, this scaled-back alternative plan for Willow would have a smaller climate impact than the originally proposed project, but it would still emit about 9.2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide each year. That's according to the Bureau of Land Management, not to some crazy environmental group, right? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.